Today's case study is all about O.J. Simpson, who was a pretty prolific football player until he got involved, I guess, since he was criminally proven not guilty, but got involved with some murdering. So the focus of this case study is going to be about processing the crime scene. There are 7 S's, and you can put air quotations around that, 7 S's, associated with processing a crime scene, and we're going to go through them and talk about how, in this case in particular, those 7 S's were basically just ignored and thrown away, and this is why this case was such sort of a mess when it was going through the actual criminal case with the jury. So let's get started. The scene. It was late the night of June 12, 1994, when a blood-stained white dog was found wandering the streets of an affluent neighborhood in Los Angeles, California. When neighbors went to investigate, the dog led them to a house on Bundy Drive, where its owner, Nicole Brown Simpson, was found dead in a pool of blood outside the home. 911 was called, and the saga that followed was one of the most closely watched murder investigations of all time. Once a police perimeter was established, the scene was searched, and the body of 25-year-old Ronald Goldman was also found in the small front walkway of the home. The number one suspect in the case was the ex-husband of Nicole Brown, O.J. Simpson, an American football star and pop culture icon. He had a history of abuse against Nicole, and his alibi seemed weak. The case. To an outsider, the case against O.J. Simpson seemed concrete. His DNA was found in blood drops at the crime scene. Only about 0.5% of the population could have matched. The blood drops at the scene were made by an injury to the left hand of the perpetrator, and O.J. had a fresh cut on his left hand, which he gave varying explanations for. Shoe prints in blood matched a pair of very rare and expensive shoes that O.J. owned, and in a similar size. A bloody fingerprint on the gate at the crime scene matched O.J.'s blood type. O.J.'s car had his blood on the steering wheel and the dash, while a partial shoe print was in Nicole's blood. The chances of the blood in the print belonging to someone other than Nicole was 1 in 21 billion. Finally, a sock found on O.J.'s floor in his bedroom had blood spatter from Ron Goldman on it. With all of this evidence, how is it possible O.J. was found not guilty in the criminal trial? Questionable police work. The defense team was able to poke holes in the prosecution's story by exposing multiple instances of shoddy police work. In the United States, to be convicted of a crime, the prosecutor needs to prove that the defendant committed the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. With all of the mistakes that were made, this was simply not possible. The 7 S's gone wrong. The 7 S's of crime scene investigation are securing the scene, separating witnesses, scanning the scene, seeing the scene, sketching the scene, searching for evidence, and securing evidence. While the crime scene on Bundy Drive did get yellow tape and was secured, it was a very small crime scene. At one point, there were up to 9 officers within the small confined space of the walkway before the scene had been completely cleared. The LAPD walked through the bloody sidewalk and redistributed blood. Multiple pieces of evidence were photographed, but no log was established dictating what the photographs were of or where evidence was located. Additionally, evidence was photographed without markers and without rulers, which made it hard to determine scale. The first shift of officers spotted a bloody print on the gate at Nicole's house. However, the print was never photographed, nor entered into the chain of custody, and miscommunication between first and second shift meant the print was lost. A drop of blood on the back of Nicole Brown Simpson appeared to have been dropped from someone standing over the body. While there is photographic evidence of this drop, it was not collected and the body was moved, which destroyed the evidence. Mishandling evidence. The collection and storage of evidence was also handled improperly. There were instances in which separate pieces of evidence were stored together in the same bag when they should have been placed in separate containers. Blood-soaked items were packaged before they were allowed to dry, which potentially changed the evidence. Additionally, evidence was stored in a hot truck, which compromised the evidence. Persons who were not authorized to handle evidence did and broke the chain of custody. There's a record of Simpson's Bronco being entered after it was in police custody by individuals other than those authorized. Missing samples. Approximately 1.5 milliliters of OJ's blood that was taken as a reference sample was unaccounted for. The exact amount of blood drawn from Simpson's arm was never recorded. The officer who was supposed to log the blood into evidence instead put the vials in his pocket and went back to the crime scene. Cross-contamination. The same police officers worked both the primary and secondary crime scenes. The house on Bundy Drive was the primary, where Nicole lived, and OJ's home was a secondary crime scene. These same officers also entered OJ's car. This made it possible for the transfer of evidence mistakenly by police officers. At the Bundy Drive crime scene, police officers used a blanket from inside the house to cover Nicole Brown's body as it lay in the sidewalk, potentially leaving traces of evidence behind which came from inside the house and not from the crime itself. Late discovery of evidence. When police arrived at OJ's house, they collected a pair of black socks from his bedroom floor. However, blood spatter on the socks was not discovered for over 2 months. There was also blood found on the gate of Nicole's home, which was not collected until 2 weeks after the murder. Not guilty. After the criminal trial of OJ wrapped up, it only took jurors a few hours to arrive at a not guilty verdict. There are countless books and movies about how this trial unfolded and the way in which it was covered by the media. The case captured the attention of people around the world and served as a grave lesson in why crime scenes need to be treated with particular care.